Hello, Facebook land. This is Dr. Rick Wren in Allen, Texas at Bonefish Grill with our monthly Society of Chiropractic Masters meeting. We're going to start out with our tribute to Dr. Jeffrey Cottingame, which is one of our members, one of our good members, also a board member. Made a lot of trips to Destin, Florida with us. And he used to drive from Durant, Oklahoma, 30 miles to my house, and then we get in my truck and we drive 60 miles down in this area, normally more in the Plano, Frisco area, and we did that every Monday for a lot of years. Unfortunately, we lost him to cancer last week, and a lot of you are calling me and messaging me and texting me from all over the world. What happened? I'm just going to give you the short version. He had one of the nastiest cancers I've ever seen. My mother died in my own home. She was 65 years old when she got it. She died 3 years later because of chiropractic care. It kind of kept her alive longer. Even the doctors told me she lived a lot longer than she should have. But even at her age, when she died, she did not look near as bad, near as old as, God bless, Dr. Jeffrey Cottingame. He died at 45 years of age, and that cancer was terrible. And I know his family feels this way because I've talked to Dr. Janet Cottingame, who's here tonight. She wanted to come to this tribute. And we all feel like, man, we're so glad he passed, because towards the end, the last few days, he was really suffering a lot. He just did not look like Jeffrey. So we've got 6 or 7 people. My brains are scrambled because I've been doing a lot of crazy stuff, including I got a motel tonight within a block of here, so I can drink. So I'm throwing myself under the bus. So anyway, we got several guys. We're going to talk about 2 minutes each, and then Dr. Gilles LaMarche will be the last one, and because he knew Jeffrey for a long time, and actually worked with him in his speaking at Parker Seminars when he was there several years ago, 5 years ago, right? 6 years ago? 6 years ago. Now he's at Life University promoting Life Vision and Rubicon and several other things. So he'll be the last, and then we'll shut it down, and then we will do like we always do, give you 15, 20 minutes of what you want to see, and then we're going to open up, and then Dr. Gilles LaMarche will be talking about what the hell is your time it's going to be?
The title is going to be How Willing Are You?
How Willing Are You? So now I'm just going to go, let's see. Let's go Dr. John DeVore first. Applause.
Well, Dr. Jeffrey was one of my best friend, but is my favorite person to spend time around, because he was just funny. We had a similar humor. He was funnier than I am, but he was he was just a lot of fun to be around. What I kind of want to talk about is some of the experience when I was trying to work on him in the last week. I've never had such intention to try and help somebody heal. And I was doing energy work, and it was right where the tumor was, and I had my hand on it, and I felt energy leave me before. But this time I felt it just pumping like out of my lungs, and it was very palpable and physical. Like I could feel it. It almost hurt me as it left. And he could feel that energy hit him. And there's one time I felt it just draw right out of like my brain and go down my arm. And he felt it hit him at the same time. And that mass would soften, like we could feel it. I remember it just turned to like the mush. And he could breathe, and so we're thinking we might have this. And I'd go home and I felt like I had the flu. I mean, I was completely exhausted about an hour later. I just could lay on the couch and take supplements, and we're good without that.
But maybe not on this one.
So we did this every day, and another time I felt it just come out of my throat, and I almost couldn't talk after that. He felt that energy hit him, and it was incredible to try and give him everything I possibly could without myself passing out. But I've never felt such an effort to heal. And like Rick said, this was a freight train, and we just weren't going to keep that train from coming to town. But it was such a spiritual healing effort on my part, and he felt it too, to be so connected and just drawing that really life out of me and back into him. May have given him a few more days, but it would calm him down. He wasn't panicked, and he could breathe again. And just the next morning, it seemed like it started over. But that's what I wanted to share, was that ability to transfer love and healing. And Jeffrey took it and felt it, and it helped him. So that's what I wanted to share, Rick, was that experience.
Okay.
I've been trying to think about what I can say about Jeffrey, and there's so much to say about him. He was an incredible guy, as we all know. Loved his family. We've heard that a million times. He changed so many lives. I'll never forget the time we went to Destin. And at the time, I was having trouble with my stepdaughter. And more specifically, she was living with a boyfriend who was not very nice and was kind of tossing her around. And I was expressing to him my frustration and aggravation. And he looks at me and he says, "Just say the word. I know people who can take care of him, and if you want him taken care of, say the word." So Jeffrey was a friend that would go above and beyond what would be reasonably considered something you should do, and he's going to be missed. He's going to be missed by all of us, and I'm grateful to have known him, and I feel enriched in my life to have known him, and blessed that I could be a part of someone who I know has changed and touched so many lives. Thank you.
So I want to tell a story about Jeffrey and I that happened, and it seems like a lot of the stories may be about Destin, because that was where we really had a chance to bond. For those of you that don't know, the Society of Chiropractic Masters has taken an annual trip to somewhere. In the last, I think, almost 14 years, maybe 15, we've gone to Destin, Florida. The cool part was the drive down and the drive back. Most people are like, that's an 11-hour drive, and it's like, but that was the most important part. But there were some things that happened in Destin. Most of the time we wanted it to stay in Destin, but Jeffrey and I had one day that I think was just Jeffrey, and it was just the way that we were. We decided we were going to go down to the beach a little bit early, and we were going to talk philosophy over a 24 case of beer. And a few hours, like an hour and a half later, comes and goes, and we stagger back up to the room. Dr. John does his magic to us, so we're not totally dead. And that was fine. And then I actually passed out on I think it's about the 18th floor balcony. I had a bowl of Cheerios in front of me, big thing full of milk, and I'm apparently totally gone. Most people that know me, I'm a little bit jumpy. He comes up, yells in my ear, and I almost dove over. I think he grabbed me by the shoulders just to stop me from doing that. But it was the conversation that we had that day. It was the actions like that. It was his fun, loving activities. That's what made Jeffrey who he was. That's what I want to remember from him. And I think that that's the most important part, because he touched so many of our lives, and I had no idea what to talk about. But that's the one story to me that just was really about him, his love of music, his love of his family, his love of chiropractic, this profession. And he was the guy that I would call when I needed someone to pick me up. So I tell you what, I will definitely miss him. He's amazing, and I wish his family the absolute best.
Hello, I'm Brian, and like everybody said here, we've all have some wonderful stories that we could talk about Jeffrey, but the thing that I loved about him the most, the way he was able to tell a story. He would be so engaged in his mannerisms, and he would get you involved, and he'd look you right in the eye, and he'd get you focused in. You can tell I'm a rookie at this, Rick.
Let me play in your pocket.
Don't be playing it. Hey, whoa.
Keep talking about it.
I go.
You good?
Talking about Brett.
After I've been finagled over here. But yeah, it was Jeffrey's just this energy about him. He made me feel so comfortable. we had a lot of fun stories, a lot of really wonderful times, and he was a great dad, great husband, loved his kids. But the thing that I loved about Jeffrey the most is how intense he was about chiropractic. Had some really good heart-to-heart moments, and he used to say, Brian, why do you want to be a chiropractor? I want to help people, Jeffrey. That's all you need, bro. And right there, you got to start moving forward, start helping people. And if you come from a good part in your heart, you're going to help a lot of people. And that's one of the main things that helped push me over the top from being, 20 people a day to 40 people a day to 60 people a day. It was just because of that. And obviously, the SOCM lessons, but that energy, that passion of really wanting to help people and really putting yourself out there, that energy out there. If I'm going to help you, I'm going to with all that I can. And just pure chiropractic philosophy-based practice. And that's the main thing that I really appreciate from Dr. Cottingame. Thank you.
Last Thursday, I lost a good friend and a wonderful colleague. Jeffrey was the kind of guy that loved us so much that when I got really excited about the upper cervical, he said, well, I want to come to a seminar with you. And he did. He was always the center of attention in the life of the party, but he always was up for a deep philosophical discussion about chiropractic. Two things I will never forget about Jeffrey. It was the first time I saw him at our meeting. And he kept calling Rich, hey coach, hey coach. And yeah, we kind of poked fun at him about that. But that began a lifelong friendship between he and Rick and the rest of us. And I will miss him. I will never forget him. And I will always appreciate him.
There we go.
There you go.
So I had the pleasure of knowing Jeffrey as a student. I had the pleasure of knowing him as a colleague. And if I described him, I would say he was a man who loved to pray, he loved to work, he loved to play, and he actually just loved to love. Some of you know that Jeffrey, other than being an exceptional husband, father, friend, and chiropractor, was also a minister. My son Jason and my daughter-in-law Rebecca had the privilege of having Jeffrey officiate their wedding. My wife Melissa and I had the pleasure of having Jeffrey officiate at our wedding. And Jeffrey was just that man that showed up for no other reason than he was your friend. Jeffrey was the kind of man you could just say, hey, could you help me with this? And he would say yes. And he was a man who was forever grateful. I mean, I remember encouraging him to speak at Serendipity, which is where Parker speakers learn to become Parker speakers. He said, well, do you really think I could pull it off? I said, dude, you can pull it off. And of course, we all know that he did. And then when I was at Parker seminars, whenever I asked Jeffrey for anything, I mean, he would show up and ready to volunteer, show up ready to MC an event, show up and ready to do everything. I believe that God calls us home when God decides to call us home. This was time for Jeffrey to be called home, and I believe that he was ready to be called home. I spoke to him on Good Friday morning, I believe. I was sitting in my study at home, and I called Rick to check on how Jeffrey was doing, and he happened to be sitting with Jeffrey, and I got on the phone. It was a short conversation. I could tell he was struggling to breathe. It was a short conversation, but I'll tell you what I remember. He said, remember, I love you so much. And then what really touched me, he said, please tell your children how much I love them. And so because of our time and our family gatherings at Parker seminars, my children having been there, for years, my oldest son being a chiropractor, I mean, Jeffrey loved everybody. And I think what most people will miss is his presence. What I'm asking all of you to remember is how much he loved each of you. And if you hold that in your heart and you believe that he was called home because it was his time to be called home, I think that over time you're going to develop a sense of peace, knowing that that's what life gives us. We don't know when we're going to be called home, but we should be ready to be called home. And I think that as chiropractors, the majority of us live that life. We're ready to be called whenever we get called. And so I encourage everyone listening in, yes, it's a tribute to this man. I mean, he was born the year I started university, for God's sakes. And I was like that close to him. Almost 20 years his senior, and it was like we were equals. And so remember that from Jeffrey. Take that loving atmosphere, take that caring individual, keep that in your heart. And the best gift that we could all give Jeffrey is that we would choose to behave the way Jeffrey behaved. He was a beautiful example, as I said, of an amazing husband, amazing father, amazing friend, amazing chiropractor, just an amazing man altogether. And I think that when we give tribute to someone, we should take the gifts that he left us and live those gifts through it. That's the tribute. It's not standing up here for 2 minutes and speaking nice words about a man and speaking true, honest words, but it's about living the legacy that he left in each of our hearts. Whether you're sitting here in this room in Allen, Texas tonight, or you're actually sitting at home on the couch or in your car. Be careful if you're in your car. He would tell you, be careful if you're in your car. But just remember, Jeffrey came to this earth to serve. He understood loving service, my first technique, and he also learned to play. So play. Smile a lot, laugh a lot, because what I remember, and I think most people around that knew Jeffrey remember, is that beautiful smile. You just want to pinch his cheeks and kiss him. He smiled so nice all the time, and that's because he walked around with an open heart. So whether he was doing that as a chiropractor, as a friend, or whether he was doing it when he was officiating a wedding, he was an awesome man. And Jeffrey, that's how I'm going to remember you, and I ask all of you to remember him.